2016 is really a memorable year for me because 2016 is when I became woke, and I didn't have a terminology for that woke thing, right? There wasn't woke church at that time. That's kind of a new phenomenon within the past couple of years. But 2016 was big for me because we had just moved from Florida to New York, and around that time was the Colin Kaepernick thing,
right?
And then it was when what was the cop the killing at that time?
Was that the
was it
Eric
Michael
Garner?
Brown? It was Eric Gardner, yeah, Eric Gardner,
Yeah.
and then coming into Michael Brown.
Yeah, those were, if my memory serves me, man, those were some of the hot incidents that were going on at that time.
Yeah. And so those and others, man, because then you had Tamir and you had who was the other individual who was
2016, we also might be looking at the Philando. Was it Philando Castillo?
I think Philando was 17.
17, okay.
But anyway, around that time,
right
around that time, man, is when and this is kind of what I want to get with you on tonight as we chop it up and we talk, is around that time, man, when I saw all these cop killings, right?
Yeah.
Everything that the media was presenting.
Right.
I didn't have this category of critical thinking, right? It was just this. I mean, look at it. The evidence is clear as day. I mean,
right.
that white cop shot that black man. He had his hands up, and now he's dead. And this always happens to us.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And that was really the narrative, man, that really I was like a fish in the water that bit the hook, and it just sucked me, you know?
Well, it's pretty easy too. It's pretty easy to get caught up in that, especially and you said it yourself, you didn't have that category of critical thinking.
Yes.
It wasn't because, man, I'm telling you, I used to have a similar mindset, especially being a black man in America, growing up in the 70s and 80s. Those are some very formative years for me. But growing up in those times and dealing with racism a lot. When I grew up in New Jersey. A lot of people think that you grow up in the Northeast on the East Coast that you don't deal with racism. Man, that's nonsense, man. I can go and tell you stories of the things that we dealt with growing up in a predominantly white neighborhood. But then through the years, with my experience in the area, working in the field, it kind of swayed my opinion somewhat. But man, I'm telling you, when it came down to the area of critical thinking, that was something that the Lord graced me with as I started dealing with the issues of evolution and how the media, it's really crazy because how the media portrays, quote unquote, their evidence, quote unquote, evidence for evolution. And then, there were different ministries out there that really started helping me to inform me, like when it comes to my studies and reading, how do you interpret this data when you're seeing something and know when truth is given? But once you really start looking at it critically, you start seeing all the vague terms. It could be perceived to be, possibly, maybe, but the main headline was evidence for, man lived for whatever the case may be, that we evolved from apes, whatever the case may be. But then once you start becoming a critical thinker, you start examining information. By God's grace, it helped me as time went on. Once all these different arguments and evidences started coming out in relation to allegations of police brutality, it helped me be able to better understand what the media narrative and being willing to research and try to find out what really went down.